And this is basically giving you an idea of how you determine what percentage you're paid from where. And so across the top here, the top of the screen, you can see where it says paid as title. And it gives you the different ranks. So for each percent that's paid out, there is a rank requirement. And then there is also a volume requirement. So if you see where it says monthly PV, monthly OV, that means that in order to be paid at that percentage, you must have that rank, you must have that monthly PV, and you must have that monthly OV. PV is personal volume, OV is overall volume. So the volume of everyone that is underneath you. So, so doTERRA uses dynamic compression in their compensation plan. And that's important because in some compensation plans, if someone doesn't meet one of these requirements, then that percentage is lost. Basically, it's not paid out to anyone. doTERRA doesn't do that. They use dynamic compression. So if a percentage is not paid out to someone, it rolls up to the next person who meets that requirement. So it is paid out 7 levels, no matter what. Now, I'm going to try to give you a demonstration of what that looks like. Make it a little more practical. Sometimes it's hard to, looking at this, it's really hard to follow what I'm talking about, I know. So I'm going to try to give you a practical example that I've built here on PowerPoint and hopefully it works. Okay. So let's take a look down at the very bottom purple bubble. Now let's say that's a customer that has been enrolled for more than 60 days, because this example I'm going to give you is dependent upon them not being, their percentage not being captured under fast start. So this is unilevel. If that person that was enrolled for less than 60 days, this doesn't apply because the fast start is paid to the enrollers. But this person, let's say the consultant 100 PV on the bottom, has been enrolled more than 60 days, and they've just ordered their LLV for the month or whatever they need. Let's take a look at how that percentage is paid and who is paid on that order. Okay. Sorry, let me change my screen a little. All right, so let's say the order is placed. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up here at the top at my little chart, and it says paid as title, and it says wellness advocate. That's actually now called consultant. But it says in order to be paid that 2% at level 1, they must be a wellness advocate, a consultant, and they must have a monthly PV of 50. Okay. So this consultant has spent 100. And now we're going to see, are they paid on this? So now the consultant at the bottom spent 100. The consultant above them in their organizational tree spent 50 PV and is a consultant rank. So they are going to be paid the 2%. Okay. So once they're paid, then that row, that column, I apologize, that column is gone and taken care of and paid out. So now we're going to move on and we're going to evaluate left to right on the graph to determine who is paid next. So as we're evaluating, our first column is paid out. Now we're going to look next up our organizational tree. We're going to go up the tree and we're going to look for a manager that has a 100 PV order. So we look up at the next one. So that's our manager there. They meet the rank requirement, but they did not spend 100 PV. They don't meet the OV requirement. So they are not going to be paid. So we're not going to cancel that column. We're going to keep looking. So we move to our next person, our elite. They meet the rank requirement because they're ranked higher than the manager. They meet the PV requirement. So they will be paid the 3% from level 2. And now that column is gone. So I've done a couple of them. Is this, any questions before we keep going? Is this kind of making sense? All right, we'll keep going. Okay, so now we've evaluated our first 2 levels. Now we're going to continue to move up our organizational tree, and we're going to look for a director with 100 PV. And we see that the person right above that does meet the rank requirement. They meet the OV requirement. So they are paid 5% of that initial consultant's 100 PV order. And so that takes care of that column. Okay, so, all right, I want some help from the class here. What are we going to look for next?
The manager.
Well, our next one up the tree is a manager. So let's look over and see at our chart and see if they meet the rank requirement for the next person to be paid. The next rank requirement is executive.
Executive.
So even though they do meet the OV requirement, they don't meet the rank requirement. So that manager is not going to be paid on this particular order. And let me be clear, we're talking about one order. There could be multiple orders up under these people that are all being evaluated. So just because that manager is not paid on this order doesn't mean they're not getting paid on other orders. We have to look at it case by case. So that manager doesn't meet the rank requirement, doesn't get paid. So we have to keep going up. Now, we're looking for an executive and we found one. The OV is there, and so that person will be paid 5%, and that cancels out that column. So as we continue to evaluate, next we're looking for an elite. We've got a premier, so that meets the rank requirement, but that premier did not place a 100 PV order. That premier will not receive any commission on this order. Now let's keep going. We're still looking for an elite with a 100 PV order, and we do have one here. So that elite will be paid 6%. And that column is taken care of. So now so far we've paid out at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels. It pays out to 7 levels. So we have 2 more levels left to pay out. All right. So our next requirement is for a rank that was at least premier with 100 PV, and our next person in our tree is actually a gold. So they meet the rank requirement and they've ordered 100. So they will receive 6% commission. And now we have paid out 6 levels up to 6%. And now our next rank requirement is going to look for a silver, which this person happens to be. They do meet the rank, they meet the OV, and so that silver is paid 7% on that order. Now the diamond above them, are they going to be paid? Does anybody know? What do you guys think? No, they won't, because we have evaluated 7 levels. So on this particular order, that silver that got 7%, that was the last level to be paid out, the 7% level. So the unilevel stops there. So the diamond will not be paid on this order. So that was a drinking from a fire hose version of how dynamic compression works. Don't feel like you have to know it all now. But it helps, it really helps to understand that when you're thinking about how you're going to structure your team or place them in an organization and how you're going to get paid. It helps to know that dynamic compression piece